Good morning/afternoon, everyone. I'm excited to dive into today's topic, understanding differential association theory in criminology. We'll explore how criminal behavior is influenced through social learning and what this means for prevention strategies. Together, we'll uncover the key ideas behind this theory and see how it helps us make sense of why people engage in crime. Let's get started. Differential association theory was developed by Edwin H. Sutherland back in 1939. This theory provides an explanation for criminal behavior by focusing on the process of learning that happens through social interaction, especially within close-knit groups like family and friends. Unlike other explanations that look at biological or psychological causes, this theory highlights how criminal behavior is learned through communication and social influence. Essentially, people pick up values, attitudes, techniques, and motives for criminal acts by spending time with others who already engage in or support these behaviors. The most important social groups in this learning process are close contacts, such as family members and peers. This slide explores the psychological foundation of differential association theory by connecting the social environment with individual psychology. Essentially, it shows how people internalize attitudes and beliefs that support criminal behavior through cognitive learning, reinforcement, and the development of social identity. When individuals spend time in influential groups, they absorb shared definitions of what behaviors are acceptable, which strongly shapes how they see the world and the choices they make. Psychological processes like modeling, where individuals imitate observed behaviors, and reinforcement through social approval play a crucial role in embedding these criminal tendencies. Finally, the theory emphasizes that forming a social identity within these groups is key. As people begin to see themselves as part of that group, they adopt its associated behaviors, including those that are criminal in nature. When we talk about differential association theory, there are several key elements that help us understand how people learn behaviors, including those that go against the law. First, we have definitions, which are essentially the meanings and attitudes people attach to certain behaviors. These can be positive or negative toward breaking the law. Then, frequency refers to how often someone interacts with others who share these specific attitudes. The more frequent the contact, the stronger the influence. Duration speaks to how long these interactions last over time, since longer exposure typically means a greater impact. Priority is about the age at which someone first encounters these influences. Earlier exposure often leads to a stronger effect because younger people are more impressionable. Intensity relates to how important or prestigious the person providing the definitions is. If the source is highly respected, their influence is more powerful. Finally, mode of communication covers the ways people learn these attitudes, whether through direct conversation, storytelling, or symbolic means like gestures or signs. All these elements together shape how individuals adopt certain behaviors within their social environment. Here, we see three clear examples that illustrate how differential association works in real life. First, consider a teenager who learns to steal by spending time with peers who are already engaged in theft. Through the social circle, the teenager not only picks up the techniques of stealing, but also the justifications that make such behavior seem acceptable. Next, we have an employee who starts using fraudulent accounting methods. This change happens after repeated interaction with a colleague who models and reinforces these unethical practices, showing how behavior at work can be influenced by close relationships. Finally, gang recruitment offers a more intense example, where new members are directly taught violent behaviors, along with the specific codes and norms that legitimize illegal acts within the gang. All of these examples highlight how crucial social interaction is in learning and adopting criminal behavior. When examining this theory, it's important to recognize some key critiques and limitations. First, it tends to put too much emphasis on social learning, often overlooking the role of individual personality traits and biological factors that also influence behavior. Second, it doesn't fully explain why some people exposed to delinquent influences never actually engage in criminal activities themselves. Third, the theory lacks strong predictive power. It doesn't clearly identify the initial causes that lead someone to commit a crime. Lastly, there are significant challenges in measuring critical elements like the frequency, intensity, or priority of associations, which makes it difficult to empirically test and validate the theory. These limitations remind us that while the theory offers valuable insights, it doesn't provide a complete explanation of criminal behavior. Let's look at how differential association theory compares with other crime theories. First, when we compare to strain theory, we see that while strain theory highlights the social pressures and frustrations that push people toward crime as a way to cope or adapt, differential association theory focuses more directly on the influence of interactions and communications with others. In other words, strain theory looks at external stressors, whereas differential association emphasizes the learning that happens through social relationships. Next, when we consider biological and psychological theories, the difference becomes even clearer. These theories suggest that criminal behavior stems from innate traits or mental health issues, something inherent within the individual. Differential association, on the other hand, argues that crime is learned through social and environmental factors, not something you're born with. Building on this, social learning theory extends differential association by adding the idea of reinforcement and punishment, showing how people learn behaviors by observing and imitating others, and through rewards or consequences. So, the key takeaway here is that differential association and its related theories focus on the social context, rather than biology or psychology alone. When it comes to preventing crime and intervening effectively, the first step is to modify social environments. This means reducing individuals' exposure to delinquent peers and attitudes that support criminal behavior. By changing who people interact with and the norms they encounter, we can limit harmful influences. The second step focuses on early socialization. Family, school, and community programs play a crucial role here by promoting positive values from a young age. Early experiences help shape attitudes and behaviors, so emphasizing these positive influences is key. Next, mentoring and community engagement are vital. Providing young people with alternative role models and peer groups can steer them away from delinquency. These initiatives create a supportive network that encourages prosocial behavior. The fourth step involves rehabilitation through group therapy and social skills training. This approach helps individuals unlearn negative definitions and behaviors while building healthier ways of interacting. Finally, developing policies that encourage pro-social environments is essential. Effective policies foster interactions that support positive social norms, which in turn diminish the likelihood of learned criminal conduct. Together, these steps create a comprehensive strategy for crime prevention and intervention. To sum up, differential association theory gives us a social learning perspective on crime by emphasizing how criminal behavior is shaped through interactions within close-knit social groups. It highlights the importance of communication and association, showing that attitudes and motives toward crime develop through these social exchanges, rather than being a result of biological or psychological problems. This makes the theory particularly useful for designing prevention and intervention strategies. However, it's important to recognize its limitations, especially when it comes to measuring these social influences and the theory's overall scope. Because of these limitations, combining this approach with other perspectives can provide a more comprehensive understanding of criminal behavior.